Hello, lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another interview. Today, I have the man who is wanted dead or alive because he stole your breath, Outlawman76. How we doing, handsome?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me on. I hope you're doing well as well.
I'm still breathing, so we'll take that. So, first thing, who are you? What do you do? What do you create? And where can people find you?
Who am I is a very complicated question, you see. No, I am Outlawman76. You could find me at twitch.tv/Outlawman76. Pretty much Outlawman76 across the board. I even got it on Steam now as Outlawman76, which I wasn't always able to have. What do I do? Well, it depends on who you ask. Technically, I stream. I just call it ranting at the screen because that's pretty much all I do. I don't pay attention to the stories in the games that I'm playing, mostly because I've played most of them before already. And even the new games that I'm playing or playing for the first time, I'm pretty much relying on chat to carry me through it because my style is just sort of, I take the piss out of everything. I never actually take anything seriously, and this is true IRL. If you have conversations with me, it always breaks down into a joke at some point.
Yep.
So I never take anything seriously. That includes gaming. So when I'm streaming, it is pretty much me making fun of the game, be it awkward characters, the way they look, the way somebody says something. For example, I'm playing Dragon Age, or not Dragon Age, Dragon's Dogma, and they call me the Arisen because that's the character's name. And just their way of speaking, they're always talking about we were concerned with your coming, and I'm like, buy me dinner first, don't be so concerned about that. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm not that kind of guy. So that's
/out.
Yeah, there you go. So
Easy
yeah, yeah. Listen, I had a plan one time. I said I'm going to start on one of those sites completely nude, and to put on clothes, it's going to cost like $20 or $30, $40, whatever it is. And I will do a stream like that, and you tip me to put clothes on. By the end of it, I'll never have to work again.
You and me have both had that same thought.
I'm telling you, it's. Somebody's gonna do it. Yeah. Somebody out there is gonna do it, and they're gonna make a bank, and then it's gonna be like, damn, we had the idea, we should have did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where you can find me. I also, YouTube is Outlawman76. Everything is pretty much Outlawman76. And the genesis of that, if you want to know about that, more of like who I am, part of the question, I am a huge fan of both the bird and the band, the Eagles. So if out there, if you haven't heard of the Eagles because you were born this century, they've done Hotel California and such. They were banned in the 70s. And so they had a song called Outlawman. And way back in 2006, when I first discovered YouTube, and I was discovering that they had live recordings of this band from the 70s, concert footage, I saw a performance of Outlawman from Seattle in 1976. And so Outlawman76 became basically my username when I created an Xbox Live account later that summer. And it's just been the easiest name I could think of. It's always Outlawman76, and it's stuck. So when I created a Twitch account in 2013, that's what it became long before I ever thought I would stream. And so here we are. Most people just call me Jay, to be honest.
Which you have that magnificent coffee cup with just J on it. So
branding.
So that actually was going to answer a question I've always wanted to ask, like why Outlawman76? Which reminds me of a story from back in the day. I used to do a lot of creative writing. Ironically, is how I came up with the username Karlec. My real name's Sean. I don't really care if people know that because you just go to my Twitter and you have my name. I don't care. But a friend I used to write with had Sweet Emotion 96, the Aerosmith song. Very similar kind of vibe there. But one thing I wanted to ask, considering we got what kind of inspired the username in that, what inspired you to get into doing content creation in the first place?
So it's kind of a long, windy road. So buckle up. If you haven't gotten used to the sound of my voice, you will, trust me. It all started, I'm a huge fan of Mass Effect. And so I was on Reddit one day, and I was part of the Mass Effect subreddit, and I just clicked the front page, and it showed somebody cosplaying as Miranda.
Mm.
And so I clicked on it, and it turns out that she was at the time a Twitch streamer. And so I followed her, and this was about 2018. This was January 1st, 2018. And she was very warm and welcoming, and sort of it made me more comfortable with coming to Twitch regularly, because I hadn't been on Twitch for 5 years. I created an account in 2013 when Saints Row the Third was coming out, because the developers were streaming on Twitch, so that created an account so I could chat. And so in 2018, I became very comfortable with Twitch because of this content creator, and she would always talk about a person named Lionheart. And so it was around March 13th, 2020. Lionheart was doing a subathon. So I actually, for the first time, went and got to see him. And he was, ironically enough, singing Let It Go. You know, he had hit a sub goal to sing Let It Go in a suit and tie, and he was singing Let It Go. And that was my first introduction. And I'm like, well, I'm here now. Yeah. And he and one of his moderators, Tia Beastie, they really welcomed me in. And they really just made me feel like a part of a community. You know, as much as the first streamer welcomed me into Twitch, this community made me feel like a part of a group. And I was in his Discord, and I saw somebody streaming Dragon Age Origins, which is one of my favorite games. And it was Tibik. And so I went there, and I followed her, and I met so many friends through that. And this is now, we're talking late March. So now we're in the pandemic in America. Like, we're in lockdown in America. So you have nothing to do but be on Twitch pretty much, or, you know, some sort of at-home activity. So through Twitch and Discord, I met so many people that were kind and supportive and all these other things. And around the same time, I joined Tia Beastie on her stream to play The Forest. We played through the first Forest. It was her, Lionheart, and some others. And I started getting used to being on stream and answering chat and having that sort of dynamic. And I played a little bit of Stardew Valley on another stream. And it became around then where people were like, you have got to stream. Because, you know, my humor, the genius of it is I play off of people. You know, I can't write a joke, but I have to interact with somebody, and I'll be able to, you know, play off of what you say. So that's kind of perfect for content creation, because you're reading chat, or you're, you know, vibing off a game, you're bouncing off a game, whatever. So my by the summer, by like late spring, early summer, I had really considered it. And when I would say I'm thinking about it, and I would see how people were like, yeah, do it. So that kind of gave me the push. And so I looked into equipment. I got the microphone and the camera and all of that stuff. And I decided that I was going to do it. I was in the process of moving as well, so I had to wait until I moved into my new apartment. But it was essentially meeting all of these people and having that support behind me. And my first stream, everybody, you know, there was so many people that was excited. I got nearly 50 followers right out of the gate. I had pretty much hit all the markers for affiliate almost right out of the gate. And it was that sort of love and support that made me feel like, you know what, I can do it. I can actually go out there and do it, because I never felt the confidence in myself. I was like, nobody's going to care if I do this thing. Nobody's going to really care. Like, I'm going to be wasting my time. Not that I'm doing this to be famous or get numbers, but if I'm going to turn on a camera and I'm going to, you know, comb my hair and put on a decent set of clothes, I'm going to do it for a reason. You know, because I can play games in my sweatpants and be comfortable, you know, if nobody's going to show up. So it was that feeling and that realization that people will be there, people will care, people will enjoy what I do, that made me go, yeah, this is something I want to do. Because I've always been a person who enjoys sort of the creation aspect, or the being, not necessarily in front of the camera, but when I was in high school, I had a camcorder, and me and my friends always, you know, recorded doing whatever it was, jokes, hanging out, sort of thing. So I was always very natural in this sort of a group holding court, if you will. And I've always enjoyed that. So it was when I realized people will actually enjoy it, and you can, you can not necessarily help people because it makes me seem like it makes it more important than I think it is, but sort of be there for somebody if they're bored or lonely and they have background content, they have somebody there, and people will be there. And so it was that support that made me go, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to create some content for people. I'm going to see if people enjoy it. And it's been 2 years next month, and I've made a lot of great friends and a lot of great memories.
So one thing you touched on, I want to go back over real quick for those who are watching. How you mentioned, yes, I came in for this bigger personality technically to start, and then kind of found my own little community. I did a very similar thing. I started watching Twitch way back. It would have been 2012 technically, or like very end of 2012, start of 2013. Sorry about the hair, anyone who is watching. My hair just does not want to play nice tonight. It's just one of those days. But I started watching for Total Biscuit because he used to stream StarCraft related content. I was just getting into the game super heavy by that point. And I met a guy by the name of Doomby, who he doesn't stream very much now. He's made a couple returns and left, family, things like that, priorities. Fellow Australian creator who I've always adored the way he did his content. And you find that little niche, you start to build your friend groups, you start to build that support. Now, I actually started streaming before I found Doomby, so it took a while before I started to take off. Now, obviously, depends on what games you play, especially on Twitch, because something like Mass Effect, I think you're going to have more people willing to come in to watch because there is no real skill ceiling unless you're doing speedruns. Whereas, because I did StarCraft, for those who don't know, it's an esport. If you play esports, if you ain't fucking good, no one wants to watch, and I was trash. So, but finding that kind of group and how it came to be, did you find that because you had that love and support, especially from such wonderful people, that it kind of transitioned into how you you kind of pay it forward essentially?
Yeah, definitely. Because that's a big thing I am about, because I don't believe we can do it on our own. Like, I'm not one of those people who think that, no matter what it is, you could just do it on your own. There's a saying called "it takes a village," and I know that's about child rearing and raising, but I think it takes a village in anything you do. It really does. Anything you want to break down, it takes a group effort. And yeah, you can go it alone, but you will, in my opinion, at some point hit a ceiling. You will hit a point at which going it alone doesn't work anymore. So for me, I know how important it was to have that support system, to have people sit there and go to me and say, I want to see you stream. I want to see you do this thing. It really, those words mean so much to someone. And at the point at where I was in 2020 versus where I am now, I wasn't as self-confident back then. I didn't have there was a lot I didn't have that I have now. And so to hear those words meant the world to me. It meant that, yeah, I can, and I remember how important that was. And streaming has honestly changed my life. It has made me a confident person. It has made me, when people come in and they're just there for you, they're not getting, they're getting something back in the terms of entertainment, but they're there to hang out. They're there to chat. They're there to, I'm not monetized, so I don't have channel rewards. I don't have emotes. I don't have, any of those sorts of things. I mean, I have BTTV, but not emotes that they could use elsewhere on Twitch. They're just there to hang out. And I'm not the best player of games in the world. So it boosts me so much that I want to make sure that I can do that for others. One thing I try to do is I try to go to a stream, when I look at who I'm following list, I give follows like candy a lot of times, because, I know how much it could mean to somebody to get a follow and all that stuff. But I will look at people who are streaming something that I'm somewhat interested in, and they don't have that many people in their stream. And I'll go in and I'll try to chat with them a little bit, because again, I know kind of what it's like sometimes when for whatever reason, it's a slow day and there's not that many people chatting or whatever, you kind of get that sort of thing in your head, kind of like you're kind of dying on the vine a little bit. So I will go in and I'll try to chat. I'll support people that I can. There is somebody who is very ingrained in my community. She is such a good friend to me, and she is like a friend. But I met her because she posted in a Discord. This was back in 2020, about August. So I was new, but I met her. She had posted a promo, and at the time she wasn't even an affiliate. She was streaming off her PlayStation, and I hung out with her for a little bit. And like I was like, oh, she's one of us. As in terms of like the people that I hung out with, I knew that her humor worked and everything, and so I followed her. And when she went live the next time, I posted in my Discord, and some of my community came over and they posted in their Discords, whoever streamed or whatever, and she met other people in the community, and now she is one of the strongest, most pillars of the community, and she has had so many good memories and everything. And so it's good to see that support can work. Like, I got the support. That's what got me where I am, and I love to be able to try to support people as much as I can, because some kind words go a long way, in my opinion. You never know how bad somebody's day is, because a lot of times you hit go live and you kind of bury whatever sort of shit you got going on, so to speak. And kind words could mean so much, and just somebody knowing, hey, there's somebody there hanging out, or you give them a host, or you share their link on, you retweet their going live tweet, or just these little bits of support that people know that, yeah, somebody cares about what you're doing. Keep it up. That's the message I try to give, because it was so important when I got the message that people cared about what I was doing.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why I actually started. I know some people think, oh, maybe he's just taking the piss when they say, howdy handsome, right? Like, I say that a lot, especially to a lot of my guy friends, just because I know, especially as two bigger dudes, we're not going to have the greatest self-confidence, as you mentioned, and there's something I want to go into about that in a second. But just something as pleasant as going, hey, someone doesn't think I look like shit. Even if I might say no, as I said, my hair, fucking up, not having a great day, I look a little bit like a homeless person, but hey, you get what you get. But in saying that, those little things, they do, as you said, they go so far, especially in the world today with how divisive a lot of people are. Giving that support really, really helps. Now, going into the self-confidence thing, because this is a big problem as well, that a lot of people who want to get into content creation struggle to get themselves to do. And, this will be a bit of a long-winded question, so I do apologize if you get a little lost if I talk in circles. But how you said earlier, 2018 into 2020, building that confidence very slowly as you got the more support around you, and then to now where you have a lot more self-confidence in yourself, especially with content creation. Now, on top of that, as you said a little bit earlier, dressing in nicer clothes, not just wearing your sweatpants and things like that. Meanwhile, I just wear whatever actually fits me on the given day. But, taking a little bit of pride in your appearance, like, you're one of the best dressed small content creators, in my opinion, I've ever seen. You always look fly as fuck. But in saying that, do you find that support you've received online and, has kind of enabled you in a way to, take a bit more pride in yourself, has translated into real life as well?
Absolutely. And I will say that the intros that you give, the howdy handsome, they do work. They do. It does work. So I appreciate that. And I'm sure that all those who get that intro appreciate it. No, it really has. And I'll tell you, it's been kind of a very interesting evolution of me. If you go back, there are clips from my first stream. I was like kitted out, suit and tie, like very like, because I had some self-confidence, but not enough. Like, I was like, you got to show up, but not a hair's got to be out of place. You have to be as dressed to the nines as you can be. If I had access to a tuxedo, I might have even worn that. But it's that sort of thing where it's like you pick apart your appearance so much. Like I used to in the mirror. It took me a long time before I passed the mirror and I go, handsome.
Yeah.
You know, like that took a while. So that's part of the real life thing that's happened, to where now I look at myself in the mirror and instead of picking out things that I don't like, I'm seeing things that I do like.
Yeah.
I like the way like there's things in my face that I'm looking at. I'm like, not bad, pretty handsome. You know, like 2 years ago, never would have been the case. 2 years ago, it would have been like, oh my God, you got this here and you got that there. And oh, you got to figure out a way to cover this up. And now it's like, go get him, Tiger.
Yeah.
And there was a moment, it was a very seminal moment that happened to me. There was one day where I never used to wear just t-shirts. I still technically don't, but like, you know, I will wear a t-shirt with a button down over it, or, you know, a hoodie or something. I never used to do that. But there was one day where I had a t-shirt that somebody had just bought for me, and I was like, I want to show it off. So I put it on, and I got the most compliments on my appearance than I've ever gotten in any stream. More than when I wore full, you know, suits and ties, and more people were like, hey, nice shirt, you're looking good, than I've ever had. And it was like a switch clicked. It was like a light bulb went off. I couldn't believe it. So I started leaning into it. And I did, because I do a podcast with BB Ansky called the BB and J Show. And one day I had a beanie that I had found. I'm not really fond of hats because I feel like my hair is a little too thick. So hats always been an issue, but beanies are fine. And I wore a beanie with a black hoodie. And I had somebody write me. She was like, I really like the way you looked on the recent episode. I really like that outfit. It was just those little things where it's like, you don't have to overdress, you know, and not overdress in the sense of like in a bad way, but you don't have to peacock so much. You don't have to cover up. You're okay just wearing comfortable things. Now, I'm not going to show up with a tank top anytime soon, but I'm comfortable now, and it's real life. It's like I have an air of confidence about me that I never had before. And it comes from people, and you know, you always got to find that validation first from within. And I'd always felt like, you know what, I'm a pretty good person, I'm, you know, all it is, but I just never really felt confidence in my appearance. But it was when people was like, man, you look good, you're handsome, you're this, that it boosted me. And now, like I said, I pass a mirror and I'm like, yeah, pretty good. And I'm very confident now in myself, both personality wise, which I've always been, you know, last, you know, 5-10 years, whatever it's been, but now also appearance wise, you know, like, yeah, you know what? Am I bigger than the average person? Yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm any less attractive.
Yeah, it doesn't,
you know,
shit.
And no, it doesn't. There's people are attracted to different things. You know, some people like a certain look, some people don't. I have attractions that I'm attracted to, you know, and whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make somebody less or more attractive. Yeah. It's just some people like some things, some people don't. There's going to be people who like, you know, rock hard abs and you know, fully cut muscular people. Perfect, great. That's just not who I am. So, you know, it just is what it is. That's their cup of tea. I'm more of a shot of whiskey. That's fine. Yeah. You know, so it's that sort of mentality that I sort of come to and sort of gotten to by meeting all different people from all different walks of life from all over the world. You know, I've met people that, you know, you would look at and be like, they're conventionally as the most attractive, what the old brain would think is the most attractive, and they face the same struggles that I face. And it's when you start understanding that you start realizing it ain't got nothing to do with how you look. It's just the journey of life. So love yourself, love who you are, and look, if there are things you don't like about yourself because of, you know, look, I want to wear a certain outfit and it's not in my size, or I want to wear heels because I just like to, you know, be imposing. That's fine. But don't say I can't have X because I look like Y. That's not the case. The journey of life is different for everybody, and we're all different. We got to look different. If we all look the same, it'd be pretty damn boring, I think.
Well, it goes to say, to kind of continue the point you were saying, how, you know, like it doesn't make anyone less or more attractive. It doesn't make anyone less or more human, right? At the end of the day,
No.
we are
Yep.
all the same inside. And this is something I spoke about with Glint as well, in his interview, where I spoke, you know, how, you know, he would face racist comments, you know, being African American. And, you know, it's like, well, I've never understood it. Like, as a teenager, yeah, you might say some edgy shit. I've never shied away from the fact, as a teenager, I've said some really stupid shit that, you know, me now would go, I'd smack myself, you know. But at the end of the day, now I know it's like skin color doesn't matter, size doesn't matter. All that matters is, are you a good person, right?
Yep.
And like that's you know, it's all about, you know, are you willing to be there for your fellow man or woman or however they identify, and just, you know, be a good person in general. So we've talked a bit about that. Now I want to get into a little bit to do with gaming. So we see that Halo plaque up the back there. This is something I wanted to talk about because you know, like you went pretty hard into Halo, especially when Infinite came out and that, and you were running a little Halo tournament. So can you tell us about like your history with Halo and all that sort of stuff?
Ooh, how much time do we have?
This is about a 2-hour interview at this rate, so we're always doing follow-ups as well, so don't stress.
Settle in. No, I've actually been playing Halo for 20 years. I got it when I didn't get it at launch, but I got it when I was in 9th grade in high school, and I had an Xbox. I had gotten an Xbox, a PlayStation 2, and a GameCube. So, you know, I had all the little systems at the time, and I was just looking for games to play. Like I didn't. At the time, the internet wasn't what it is now. There was no like wikis of games, and you know, this is the dark ages where you had to read the back of the box to see if you liked the game.
There's nothing like reading the back of the box while you're taking a shit, while you're waiting for the game to load.
Yeah,
I remember the days. Good times.
Yeah, or if you were like a Game Informer subscriber, you know, you got the Game Informer magazines, and you were able to read a little article that would maybe get you excited about the game. So I had, when I was younger, I had played Doom 64. And so I saw the box art, I saw the Master Chief, and he just looked like the Doom guy to me. Like, I wasn't a sophisticated gamer. You know, my Halo made me the hardcore gamer that I am now. You know, at the time, I was just like, pretty, bye. You know, like, oh, I can drive, bye, you know. So I saw it, and I was like, this guy kind of looks like the Doom guy. I need a game on Xbox, so I got it. And, you know, I was like, at first it didn't like suck me in, right? Like I beat a level a day. I would play a level, beat it, and just be like, all right, I'll go do something else. My cousin came over one day, and we did like the couch co-op, and we spent 14 hours that day, and we beat the whole game. And I became hooked. Like it was like something unlocked, and I became like a fiend. I was looking up lore, and I was reading the books, and I started writing. I got into fan fiction. I write, you know, I'm trying to publish a book at some point, but it all started with Halo. I started wrote a fan fiction, and I met friends who were into Halo, and they would come over to my house on the weekends, and we'd all do like little Halo tournaments, and you know, we'd play for the 4 controllers we'd play. So it just became Halo just mania for about 3 years, and then Halo 2 came out, and I was at the midnight launch, and I was the first midnight release that I had went to, and I never experienced anything like that. And when Halo 3 came out, it was just the same. I sort of kind of drifted away when the Xbox 360 came out in Halo 4. I didn't get Halo 4. I was still just kind of playing Halo 3 and enjoying it, but I had gotten into other games at that point. I had found Knights of the Old Republic, and I discovered the RPG side of myself, and I started getting lost in RPGs. And it had been like that for a really long time until it was about 2018. A lot of things tend to happen around 2018, apparently. It was Christmas 2017, so right before 2018, a friend of mine was like, you know, I'll get you a Christmas gift. Just pick something out. And the Xbox One was on sale for, I think it was like a $2.99 or something. And I was like, you know what? I'll take that. And he got me the Xbox One. I bought the Master Chief Collection. And I got to play all the old Halos, and I got to play Halo 4, and I reignited my love for Halo. And so when it came to streaming and all this other stuff, 2 years later in 2020, I had met a lot of people who loved Halo just like me. And I got the Master Chief Collection when it came to PC. So about spring of 2021, there's a member of my community. His name is Fletman795. He's huge on Halo, and I also started hearing about a bunch of other people that were big into Halo, and I started thinking, I'm like, we got a bunch of people here. We should do a Halo Day. It just started out that simply. It was just going to be a community kind of, just like community get together. And so Bibiansky, who has become like my co-host, my partner, my broadcast partner, and a lot of things that I do. He was big into Halo, and he loves to like 1v1 people. That's his thing. He's like 1v1 me, in a meme way, and he just, he doesn't take it seriously. It's all in good fun. So he and Fletman 1v1'd, and I saw the score and everything. So I started thinking, because I was like, how can we get bragging rights? Let's do a tournament, right? I used to do it when I was in high school. Now I have a bunch of people who are into it. And so we started gathering momentum. Hey, what about a tournament? And people started coming out of the woodworks like, Halo? It was like they'd pop up everywhere. Halo? Somebody say Halo? Halo. I love Halo. And so we ended up the first tournament. We got 8 people. And I was like, there was like a bracket site, and I did the brackets and all of that stuff. And he broadcasted on his channel, and I broadcasted on mine. And it was a huge success. We actually caught lightning in a bottle, I feel like. And I have my numbers turned off when I'm streaming. I never know how many people are in there. And when I went back and looked at the analytics, I'd peaked at like 50 viewers. And, I was like, and that's split between 2 channels now, because there's some in his channel, some in mine. So I'm like, holy crap, this got legs, this got juice. And so we got together and we're like, how can we improve? And BB and I decided we're going to do it on one channel. We're going to be the broadcasters, and we're going to try to, sort of professionalize it a little bit. I had somebody do overlays. We did stingers, transitions, the whole 9 yards. We even did a trailer for the second tournament.
I remember the hype video. It was sick.
Yeah, exactly. So we got the trailers. We had people do commercials within the tournament itself. We had more people interested. So it became this huge thing that just the second one was even more successful. And so Halo, to me, has been something. And the plaque became the plaque is sort of a signature of the success of the first tournament, because somebody watching the tournament, her name is Silent Dark Angel, watching the tournament, she saw it and said, "This is so cool. You got to have a way to memorialize the winners." And so she commissioned the plaque herself, and she sent it to me, and I'm eternally grateful. And so that we engrave the winners' names on there as we go. And Halo, what Halo's meant to me in my life and in terms of content creation, it has brought me, like, Bibiansky is one of my nearest and dearest friends. I call him Hermanito, which is Spanish for like a little brother, because he's a bit younger than me. And, it's kind of like a brotherly relationship. And we met mostly through Halo, and we did the broadcasting, and people loved our broadcasting so much, and we just connect so much. That's where the BB&J show started. Because I'm like, let's take this and sort of add it to just in general. And people love the BB&J show. And, it's like he and I just bounce off each other so well, and he's one of my nearest and dearest friends. And that came because of a shared love of Halo. I'm into gaming because of Halo. Like, Halo, it means so much to who I am as a gamer, and everything that's sort of come into my life. A lot of it I owe to that one day just seeing the Master Chief on like one of those stand-up poster things and be like, kind of looks like the Doom guy. I like Doom 64 when I played it. Let's give it a shot. So yeah, it's kind of it's been a long weaving road, but that's where Halo, the journey of Halo, has sort of led me and brought me.
So one thing I want to talk about real quick is, so you've mentioned a few games that like have kind of been big in your past, Mass Effect, Halo, Doom, Knights of the Old Republic. A common theme amongst all of these games is that they are sci-fi. Would you put sci-fi as one of your, if not your favorite genre?
Yes. And I am. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's in space, I'm already halfway there.
Yeah.
You already have me halfway home. You know, I've played so many games that have been absolute trash, but I've tried them because they were in space. Games that are even not really technically my genre, because I like a good story. Like one of the things that's core to who I am is time is the most valuable thing that we'll ever have. No matter how much money you make, no matter how successful you are, no matter what you do in your life, the one thing you can never get more of is time. It is the most finite resource any of us will ever have. So if I am going to spend some of that finite resource doing something, I want it to be worth my time. So games that are sort of MMO grindy kind of games, they're not my thing because I'm going to spend, 8 hours just sort of doing the same. Yeah. It's like, I can't, I love the story of a lot of the MMOs, but I just can't, I could watch a YouTube summary at a certain point. I can't play the whole thing. So, but there are games where it's like, there's this game called Genesis Alpha 1 where there's not really a story to it, but it's in space and you're kind of building a ship and gathering resources in space. So I'm like, I saw it and I'm like, I'll give it a try. Like I tried it out because it was in space. So yeah, if it has to do with space, whether it's a horror movie, whether it's a game, whether it's a TV show, anything, if it's in space, I'm already at least like willing to give it a try. Fantasy, I've learned as time went on, it was always space was first and foremost. Fantasy is coming up a close behind because I discovered Dragon Age and like Dragon's Dogma is a fantasy RPG that I'm loving. The Witcher series I love, and there's some games that like the fantasy setting, I'm like, okay, I could vibe with this too. Like it's got a fantasy setting, sure, I'll check it out too. Like those are the two things. But sci-fi is by far above and beyond the top genre.
So with your love of space, just as a quick tangent, all I can think of, sorry about the cat, everyone. Well, not sorry. Appreciate her cat.
Yes, of course.
Best thing in the world. But you remind me of Red Alert with Tim Curry when he goes, spies. It's just, I fucking love that shit.
Who doesn't love Tim Curry, really?
Tim Curry is the best. I love that man. So we've talked about kind of games you've got hooked on, your backstory with them. Now we've mentioned obviously Halo, Mass Effect, the Witcher series that we love. Of all of these, would you put any of these in your top 5 games? Plus what is in your top 5 games, and some honorable mentions are allowed because it sometimes is a little bit hard to narrow it right down.
So, Mass Effect, I count, and this might be somewhat of a controversial take, but if I had to pick one of the 3, I'll pick. But I count Mass Effect, the trilogy, as just one.
Yeah,
like, I just count it as one.
I allow series as one because, like, I love Kingdom Hearts 1, 2. I've been playing 3, and I know people shit on it. I just bought it on PC, and I'm actually loving it. So fuck you. There's my controversial gaming take, which I'll ask you yours later, like towards the end of the interview. Darkness 1 and 2. And both, like, those 4 games are my equal favorite game of all time. Like, if you gave me any of them to play for the rest of my life, I'm happy. Yeah. But I could not pick one individual from, like, it's like, yeah, I like Darkness 2 more than Darkness 1 on a gameplay level, but I like the story of Darkness 1 more than I like the story of Darkness 2. So it's like, there's a bit of give and take. Whereas, like, Mass Effect, it's like, yeah, 1 is subjectively the worst game, technically. But without 1, you don't have 2, and without 2, you don't have 3. And yes, 3's ending originally, take it or leave it, but the series as a whole is one big, beautiful space opera.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly it. Like if you put a gun to my head, I'd be like a 2, but 2 was really good because of the things you did in 1, and it led to things in 3. So Mass Effect is my all-time favorite series. The second would be Red Dead Redemption 2. That game, I'm telling you, I hate how Rockstar doesn't support the online.
Yeah.
It kills me because a lot of my community blew up by playing Red Dead Online together because it was like a lot of people were like, I love Red Dead Online, but I don't have anybody to play with. And for 2 solid weeks in my Discord, this is not even an exaggeration of hyperbole, it was 24 hours going in a chat room. There were people who we had like the day shift, the morning shift, the night shift, because you would have your Europeans would play early morning East Coast time, and they would get off like around midday or afternoon. It was like midnight, 1 o'clock, and then you would have the East Coast people carrying on through, and then you would get the West Coast people coming on, sort of when the East Coast people go to bed, and while the West Coast people were on in the middle of the night for the East Coast, the Europeans would come on. So it would be cycling through. So Red Dead Redemption 2. Would be my second, and then The Witcher 3 would be the third. As far I haven't rounded out the top 5.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard to pick. I'd probably put the Master Chief Collection or like Halo 1, so the Combat Evolved.
I mean, you can, as I said, you can pick like basically the whole series as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because, like Halo 1 is great. Halo 2 is better. And like to me, like again, you can argue, story, setting, blah blah blah, as to personal preference. Sorry for the cat fur floating in front of the camera. For those who are watching, she is starting to shed a little bit, which is weird because we're in the middle of winter. She should be fluffing off, if anything. But like you, I had a very similar experience of Halo. Like first time I played it, never got into it. Played it with a friend and got fucking just sunk into me. And played a lot, and like I haven't, like, full disclosure, I haven't played since 3. Like I've been meaning to go back and play them, but like I've always been more of a Doom player than I have been a Halo player. But Halo 1 and 2, especially 2, I adore the shit out of those games.
Yeah. So I would say the Halo series and the Dragon Age. The Dragon Age series would be fine, because I mean Dragon Age was another one that I sunk so much time into. Origins. I bought Origins again on a whim. Like I'd become more of a sophisticated gamer by this point, where like and the internet kind of caught up a little bit to where you can Google things and look things up, and sort of IGN had their sites and everything. But Mass Effect was where I was at, and I knew that BioWare had made this other game, Dragon Age. I had seen, sort of mention of it in sort of, BioWare, creators of Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and I had seen sort of similarities between the two on YouTube every once in a while, but I never really got into it. So I went to the store, and for whatever reason, they had the Origins, Awakening, and all the DLC on sale for like $20. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's a steal. Are you kidding me? I was like, what, for $20, screw it. I could take a flyer for $20. If it sucks, I could always bring it back for the 3 cents that GameStop gives me. And so I played it, and I love any game where you can create your character. That's big for me because I like to sort of envision myself in the shoes of the character, and so created the character. And I won't get too deep into it, but the opening sort of the battle scene in the Battle for Ostagar, which happens early on in the game after the prologue. That sort of scene where it's like the rain, and you have the priest in the game praying, and like it's the archers and the dogs, and then they fight and the music swells. Very Lord of the Rings. But that's where I was just like, I'm hooked. Like I was so invested in it. I was like, I could watch this for the next 4 hours. So Dragon Age was another one that sort of really pulled me in, and I went out and I got Dragon Age 2. And then when Inquisition came out, was set up and prepared. And I really loved Inquisition. So yeah, that would be my top 5. Honorable mentions, I would say GoldenEye 64. That was the first sort of like really party game that I really experienced. Because we had the old N64, and I had half brothers that we would play. I'd bring my controller. I had the see-through purple controller. It was all cool. And I owned GoldenEye. They owned WWF No Mercy. So I'd bring GoldenEye and my controller, and we would play No Mercy. We would play GoldenEye. And so GoldenEye would be an honorable mention. I'm hearing there's a remake. I'm really hopeful that it works. And KOTOR 1 would be another honorable mention. 2005, which was my junior year in high school, that summer, I had discovered it, or a friend showed it to me, and I sank an entire summer into that game. I played it and replayed it and played it again. I really love KOTOR. KOTOR is a good one. So yeah, I'm hoping that remake doesn't stumble either, or slip on a banana peel, because EA scares me a lot with the way they decide to do things.
Yeah, and before it's you have to pay before you can make any attack happen.
Oh god, yeah. You want to attack? $4.99.
But
Buy a
wait,
battle
there's
pass.
more.
Yeah, for
But
surprise mechanics.
yeah, one of my favorite questions to ask. Not my all-time favorite, but I'd say it's my second favorite question to ask. To kind of come off of talking about our favorite games and a little bit to do with the history of them. Go back to a time before you were the age of 16, so you can go up to the age of 16 and before.
Mm.
You sitting down playing a game. You can play any game from that time period. My cat is standing on the microphone stand, being a pain in the butt because she's like, I can see a bowl with food in it, even though it's just rice that she can't have. You little shit. Yeah, she's awake now, so she'll probably run around, make noise, and be a pain in the ass in general. But anyway, so back to a time before we were 16. 16 or younger. You can take any game from that time period, right? And you could reboot it to play absolutely modernly, look phenomenal, or not even change a damn thing. What game would you pick to just rehab right now and re-experience for the first time?
Okay, so this is gonna be very. I think this might send people to the Google machine. I turned 16, if I do my math correctly, in 2005,
Hmm.
or four. No, I turned okay, so 2004,
Yeah.
and I think it would either be GoldenEye 64,
Hmm.
because that was just unbelievable, or a very, very less known niche game which came out into the early 2004, so technically before I was 16, called Romance of the Three Kingdoms 10. And
Ooh.
yeah,
I haven't played it
so
myself, but I know of it.
okay, if you don't know, for those who don't know, it's an RTS game where it takes place in right after the fall of the Han Dynasty in China,
Hmm.
and it's sort of in what's called the Three Kingdoms era of China, where the overall dynasty fractured and a lot of regional warlords sort of took over. And you can literally create your character if you want, or play as one of the historical figures. My friends and I created ourselves, each other. We created families for each other and lineages, kids and all of that stuff. And we would play, like, we'd be on the phone. It was like Discord before Discord was a thing.
Yeah.
We'd be on the phone like in the summer for hours, and we'd be each playing our own game. And it's, like I said, it's RTS. You build up your nation. You have, your sort of economies and your soldiers and everything. And then you go and you attack, and, it's all strategy. You have a limited number of turns before you can attack, like any RTS basically. But it was just, I sunk so many hours into that game, and just, if I can play it again, I've looked into it on Steam. Unfortunately, there's no English language support on Steam, and I think it's still like $50 or $40, and I don't know that I want to pay that right now, as the joke says, in this economy,
Yeah.
and rely on a mod somewhere that may or may not work. So
Yeah.
I'm still eyeing it, but it is one game that if I can just snap my fingers and bring to the modern world, it'd be that one. They've made other ones. They've remade it. I think the latest one is 13, I think, if I'm not
They've
mistaken.
got a lot of them. That's how I know of it, because I've got
Yeah.
a friend who was playing through a couple of them like a few years back. I remember watching him, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's so much going on in these games.
Yeah.
There's a lot to follow.
The modern ones kind of lost the magic. 10 was the perfect balance, because you could literally travel around. You were the ruler, or you could even be a non-ruler character if you wanted. If you just wanted to be a general in the army, you can do that too. But you can go to places, you can have debates, and you could duel people. You can, you were mustering your army, and you were basically trying to unify China, and it was just so perfect for the time that I discovered it, for everything. It just scratched such an itch that, to be honest, I'm kind of glad that it's not modernized, because if it did, I wouldn't get anything done. Like, I would be so in that game that I wouldn't get anything else done. So it's kind of a good thing that maybe it's not English language supported on Steam, but man, it was just, I've been searching for games that can scratch that itch, and I have yet to find one, to be honest. It's been about 18 years now since I've first discovered that game, and it is just, they don't scratch the itch the way they did way back in 2004.
I had a very similar kind of experience with good old Age of Empires and like Empire Earth and Age of Mythology and all that. And then I discovered a little game by the name of StarCraft, and now I cannot play another RTS. I used to play the shit out of like Command and Conquer General. When I first played Command and Conquer Generals, my uncle gave me a copy of it, like his copy to play. I put it on my PC, well, the family PC, because we only had the one. And my mate was staying over that night. Legitimately, he fell asleep on the couch, and I was still playing after like 20 hours. I couldn't stop. I was so fucking hooked. And the only game that has had me that hooked to that level since has been StarCraft, where I have played, basically nonstop for 10 years. Like there are obviously points, honestly, where I did stop for like, I wouldn't play for like 3 months at a time and things like that. Cause it's like, I need, as you said, if I keep playing, I'm not getting anything done. Because I will sit here until my fingers bleed because I'm like, no, I need to play more. And I'm like, and StarCraft, like mechanically, is a very simple game in comparison, right? Because it's 1v1, beat the AI, or beat the other player. I just like versing AI. I like people. Like, oh, don't you want to verse people? I'm like, I don't give a shit. People suck. But like, I'll go up to friends of mine that are like grandmaster level players. I'll go, oi, fight me, and they're like, dude, I know. Like one of my friends, Quanta, he's an amateur for a pro Korean team, and I'm like, fight me. He's like, dude, seriously. I'm like, dude, I'll take you on. Bring it. Like, he'd whoop my ass without even thinking. But like, wonderful dude. Him and another guy, Ginio, just two of the most wholesome dudes I've ever met when it comes to the StarCraft scene. Because I like watching amateurs more than pros. As much as the pros are like, fuck yeah, this is amazing. It's fun to watch the guys who are like doing it for like, I really want to be I want to get to that level, and like they're good enough to beat the pros sometimes, but they're not consistent enough. But like, it's just that game gets me so hooked, and nothing scratches that itch quite the same as what it does.
I know the feeling.
Now, one thing we kind of touched on sort of things a little bit earlier when it comes to like self-confidence, being inclusive, all that sort of things. Now, I've known you for a little while, not super long compared to others, as you said. You haven't necessarily been in the space for a crazy long time, even though the account's technically been around a very, very long time.
Right.
But in saying that, and time zones obviously make it a bitch, because I can only really see you if I don't have to work the next day. That's when I'll generally pop in, because it's like, I can, or I've got to work at like 5 a.m. and I'm already awake. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just hang out for like 20, 30 minutes before I have to get ready and go. But are there any like charities, social projects, causes, things you've been kind of trying to support or follow?
Yeah, actually, so it's I'm glad that you asked this, because a lot of people on Twitch will come in and they'll see that I'm not affiliated, and it'll be the first time that they'll come in, and they'll sort of like be like, oh, we'll get you to affiliate. They mean well. They obviously don't know that I've chosen not to take affiliation. And that's just a personal choice for me, because it goes back to the time being the most valuable thing that people can give me. So if you give me some of your time, that's all I could ever ask for. I'm fine with the rest. Like, don't worry about, like, I know people want to support. I've had people tell me they wish that I had a sub button and all of that. And I said, and to that end, when they tell me that, I point them to, I made a video about it, but basically the TLDR is, if you really want to support me, and give a monetary contribution, I point them to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, or a local non-kill animal shelter. Those are the two things, because St. Jude's is something that I feel like I'm not somebody who wants really to take care of it. Like, I don't see kids and I'm like, ooh, I want to have a kid-friendly channel or anything. But kids fighting cancer, like, it's just, that's something that I'm like, it is. And, it's St. Jude is one of these places that, to me, it's just, I want to support them as much as I can. I can't give out of my pocket as much as I want to, but if somebody wants to give, I direct them that way. For my birthday, I tell people, I was like, look, don't worry about it. Give to those charities. And animals. Animals is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So I wish I could go to an animal shelter and adopt all the animals in there, it's like you see these videos and it breaks your heart because you see like dogs and cats that just want love, and they just, for whatever reason, they're not getting it. So local or non-kill animal shelters and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital are two that are the top. But I tell people those are charities that I support, but I also support people sort of doing something for themselves as well. Like, because yes, charities work and charities make a huge impact in the world, but sometimes people can't give as much as they want. So I tell people, turn that sort of charity into themselves. Like, instead of spending whatever a sub is in America, it's $5.99 US.
It's like $9 here.
Yeah, so whatever a sub is, instead of doing that, go out and get yourself a cup of coffee, or go out and get yourself something to eat, or a shirt that you really want, or if you want to subscribe to a gaming service for a month or whatever, that'll make you happy, that'll make you feel good. So if you don't, because I know that there are people that see charities and are like, I need to do my research, is this money going where it is? So those are the charities that I support, if that's the route that you're okay with. But if you're not comfortable with that, you still want an outlet, I tell people to turn it in on themselves. Because if they're happy, then and they were going to use that to try to support me, but they used it to turn it on themselves and make themselves happy. That, in a way, I've made a bit of a difference. So those are the ways that I tell people that if they really want to support me, those are the ways to do it. It's like St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, which I believe if you're not in America, you can still support, or if there's children's cancer hospitals and research centers in your country, or a local non-kill animal shelter.
Speaking of animal shelters, like, for those who don't know, I adopted my cat Renoa from our local shelter, which actually used to be a kill shelter back in the day, but they didn't, there wasn't really a law forcing them to disclose that. And when it came out that that's what was happening, my entire city, and I mean the entire fucking city, was like, the fuck? There was literally protests, and they're like, okay, well, if people don't want us to be one, we're going to need more funding. And the council's like, okay, well, clearly this is something that people want, so they put more funding into it, and thankfully it's no longer a kill shelter.
Yeah.
And actually my work, even though I work for a supermarket chain that makes way too much fucking money, legitimately, I think it's one of the top 3 biggest companies in the country. Technically, they make fucking astronomical amount of money. But at a local level, this every store is kind of unique because you get the people that are there. We actually started doing a food drive for our local non-kill shelter, and we had so much food get donated. People would just buy it at the supermarket and put it straight there. We have shipped, I think we're on our 3rd pallet of freaking food at this point.
Wow.
In 3 weeks, because people are just
nice.
Animals, we love animals.
Yeah.
People suck, animals are the best.
Yeah, it's like, you know what, this is not their fault, let's give as much as we can to them. And it's like, honestly, I is what I meant before, for me personally, you show me a picture of a newborn, I'm like, okay, cute,
Not for me.
Cute. I think all newborns look like wrinkly old men, but whatever. But
little scrotums.
Yeah, they look like wrinkly old men to me. I'm like, okay, he could be playing, dominoes or something somewhere. But you show me a picture of a kitten or a puppy or a baby animal, of even some people don't like reptiles, baby reptiles, and I'm like, oh my God, they're precious. Protect them. I will lay my life down for this creature that I just seen for 2 seconds, So that's the type of person that I am. And so that's why, I just am animal shelter videos. They I don't know if they did this where you are, but here in America for a while, they did this campaign with Sarah McLachlan, and I think it became memed at one point. It
did. That's the only way I know about it.
Yeah. So, I'm telling you, it would just be the most depressing song, and animals that were looking so sad. And by the end of the commercial, you're just like, you're a blubbering mess. And it's just like, my God, so
Mm.
And they tried for years when I was younger, like feed the children, and yeah, sure, feed them. Like
Yeah.
it's not their fault. It's not their fault that they're born into the situation they were, but it just never hit me the same way as the animal commercials do.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's because
just
we know as humans, like, okay, if you're hungry, this is what you can do about it. Like, we've got more conscious awareness of what's going on in the world to actually figure shit out. Whereas animals, they don't understand how an economy works, you know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's why I'm trying to use my cat to get enough subscribers on YouTube to get the points she pays for her own food. So then I'm like, good, now you're paying your way. You know, not that it's costing me a lot. It cost me like $10 a fortnight to feed her because she's only on dry food because she's still too young. But you know, it's definitely something that that I think people can definitely relate to. And same with like kids, as you said, kids with cancer. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, something as awful as that, like even especially like young kids, teenagers, and even young adults, I think it really hits people hard because you're like, man, that could be me, that could have been me, that could have been my brother, that could have been my sister,
yeah,
cousins. It could have been anyone at any point, and they haven't lived their life.
yeah.
So just to get a little personal, and I know you have stories to do with this as well. If you feel like sharing, I'm not going to force you to by any means. But during COVID times, as a lot of people did, I lost family members. Actually, no one to COVID. Ironically, I had 2 people die from cancer. I had one. I forget the name of it, but it's that ALS thing where they did
Lou Gehrig's.
That's the one. Or it's like an offshoot of that. It's something very closely related to it, at least. And I was like devastated, but all of them were in their like very late 50s to mid 60s. I'm like, okay, this is sad, but at least they got to live some of their life. When my grandmother passed away, nearly 90, right? I'm like, that's a good run. But towards the start of COVID, I lost a friend from high school, and he was 30 from a drug overdose. And it wasn't an intentional thing. He wasn't trying to do anything wrong. It was, he drank a little too much, partied a little bit too hard, and unfortunately caught up with him. And that hit me way harder just because it's like, dude, he's like a year and a half older than me. He was in the year above me in high school. We're good friends, always had good chats. Yeah, we might not have been the closest out of anyone of my friends, but seeing that happen, it's definitely one of those things where it's, I feel most people, if you want to give to charities and things like that, as you said, don't be afraid to do your research, because there are unfortunately some charities out there that basically siphon money. Looking at you, Red Cross, sue me. You won't get shit. Salvation Army, very much the same. Big multinational charities, like realistically, are going to have a lot more overhead because they need to. That's just kind of part of the parcel. But at a local level, look into local non-kill animal shelters. Look into local hospitals, things like that. Don't be an Amber Heard in the world of people just to shit on her some more, because it's fun, and I'm still not over watching her get demolished, because I'm an awful, awful human being.
Objection, hearsay.
Relevance. But at the end of the day, right, go out there, share the love, be very supportive of one another, and especially for those who are struggling, those who are going without, whether it be human, whether it be animal. At the end of the day, every single life does matter. So I know you've shared stories, especially recently in your Discord. Well, recently, not too long ago, about the passing of your father, and needing some time away and things like that. How do you feel that's kind of impacted how you go about kind of everything?
So it's been, I say that there's a dividing line in my life. There is the Jay before June 16th of 2014, and the Jay after. And to sort of, it kind of encompasses the whole conversation you're having about seeing someone who is close in your age die. It really affects you. My mom's mom passed away from cancer. My dad's mom passed away from complications from an amputation. And they passed away 2 months to the day of each other in the same year. But I had a friend in high school who was a year younger, actually more than a year younger than me, a few years younger than me, and he was stabbed and killed by his girlfriend when he was breaking up with her and all this other stuff. And so to see somebody that young
Mm.
in a casket, you know, and just like it just is jarring because it's like that could be any one of my friends, me. It's not supposed to happen to us yet. So it is jarring when you see somebody closer to your age. But to answer your question about my dad, he he passed away the day after Father's Day,
Mm.
and it was a very sort of like my entire family has sort of a form of PTSD from it.
Mm.
You know, we've managed it for the most part, but I was the only one to speak to him on Father's Day because at the time my oldest brother was an over the road truck driver and he wasn't even in the state. And my other brother was just busy with things, and my dad was working that day as well. So it just worked out that I was the only one to talk to him, and I heard his voice and I knew something was wrong. And the last words he ever said to me was, "I'm fine, I'm just tired." He passed away from an enlarged heart. You know, the coroner says 6 a.m., but there's no real knowing because he was by himself. My sister, who had lived with him at the time, she left early in the morning, and she said when she left, he was fine. You know, she spoke to him, whatever. It was a lesson in how I posted it in my Discord. Every day is a normal day until it's not. Because that day was just like any other day. You know, some friends had come over from Sweden. We were with them. I was with my brother, and everything was fine until the phone rang. And I could still remember, and you know, I won't get too into the minutia of it because I don't want to, bog this whole thing down. But I still remember the thought in my head. You know, I don't know if other people do this, but when the phone rings and you know who's calling, you kind of pre-game in your head what you're going to say. And I remember thinking, you know, I knew what I was going to say to my sister. I was busy. We were at a pool and everything. And so that just changed everything. And so because of the way my family was, you know, as I said, one brother wasn't even in the state. My brother that was with me, he went into a shock because he's a very emotional person. I wasn't near my mom. My sister was alone with my dad. We were all sort of scattered. I had to kind of push everything I felt down. I had to and go into like mission mode. I had to get my brother to, you know, like change and get going. And I had to call my mom and I had to call my sister-in-law to tell my other brother. And I was like, please make sure he pulls over first. And so I had to kind of coordinate everything. So there was no room for me to feel things right now. And so the next day, the 17th, was the harder day for me. Because that morning, you know, I had half brothers who were calling about funeral arrangements and, you know, like it was again on my shoulders, but I still hadn't felt. And it was just, that was the day in which I sort of just put my head on my desk and I felt for the first time overwhelmed and like I didn't know if I could continue. And so years later, you know, I went through a very long, because I didn't let myself grieve or feel in the moment. This was June of 2014. By the time my brother came back and we had to decide autopsy, no autopsy, funeral, and all this other stuff. By the time his funeral was held, it was early July. By a week later, I had a medical issue that took me through basically the end of August. And then I had school. I was going to college, which is where I got that degree. That took me through 2016. It was all, my focus was on all that stuff. I didn't have time to stop and feel and grieve and do all these other things. And a life lesson, tell everybody who tells me that they haven't dealt with something, deal with it, because it will come back. And it roared its ugly head early in 2017. And I went through a depression. Like, I'm talking deep depression. And I never planned anything. I was never active, but I didn't want to be around. If you catch my meaning, you know, I was hoping something was going to take me out, you know, and I'm very open about it because I tell people that I came back from it and I understand it. You know, it's up until that point, I didn't understand depression. I didn't understand, you know, how people can sort of do some of the things that people do, but I did. My brain turned on me. My own mind turned on me, and I understood it at that point. And it basically, I came out of it, and, you know, as years rolled on, when I was deciding to do content creation, I targeted June 17th as my date to
Mm,
sort of start streaming because I wanted to reclaim that date,
mm,
because that date had always been a dark date in my, life. And I never, the 16th of June will forever be known in my life as the day my dad passed away. But the
mm,
17th of June, I wanted to take back.
mm,
And because of circumstances, I wasn't able to stream yet because I didn't move yet. We were struggling to find an apartment. There was a pandemic, but I launched my Discord on June 17th.
mm,
And so I did that to sort of reclaim the date. So now June 17th is my Discord and my community's birth date.
mm,
It's like that's my date now. It's not the date in which the world was the darkest for me. It's the date in which I launched something that has brought me closer to so many people that are invaluable in my life.
mm,
I mentioned the Red Dead Redemption sort of um, era or arc or whatever it is people want
yeah.
to call it. There are people who came in during that point. One person I can think of particular, her name is Yuhoy, who I stream with sometimes, and we're very good friends and we're very close. And I wouldn't have met her without having a Discord
Mm,
that started on June 17th. You know what I mean? Like I claimed the stake in that date,
mm,
and ever since that day, I always say, I wish I could have another conversation with my dad.
mm,
I wish I can. Obviously, right? That's when
yeah.
somebody that close to you passes away. That's the obvious thing. You wish you could talk to them again. So what I sort of take with me is don't leave anything unsaid. I tell the people in my life that I appreciate them, that I care for them, that I'm always there for them. And yeah, some people are like, don't some people will come around and be like, you shouldn't say that as much. People find that a little too soft or a little too whatever. I don't
Mm,
care. I don't care about appearing soft or whatever the case may be. If you're in my life and I hang out with you and we hang out and we do all these things, like I
mm,
appreciate you. I appreciate you very much. And I tell that to people all the time, and I tell them that I care for them and that I love them and I'm there for them, because look, tomorrow's never promised.
mm,
Tomorrow is never promised. My dad went to sleep thinking about tomorrow, because he was gonna call me to look for an address so his next job was gonna be. He went to sleep probably thinking forward, the
mm,
next week. He didn't have the next week. So don't is what I don't do is I don't put off how I feel, telling
mm,
somebody something. And because here today, gone tomorrow is a very real thing. And
mm,
it's not in a bad way. Yes, death is, for us, the living, death is a bad thing because we are no longer with that person.
mm,
But it's the tomorrow's never promised. It's just it's not to make people paranoid. It's just to make people understand that you're only given the day you have.
mm,
You're never given the next day. So don't think, yeah, I really appreciate that person. I'll tell them tomorrow,
mm,
because they may not be there. Give them the roses when they're living and they can smell it,
mm,
and just that's the thing that I carry with me. And I make sure to tell people when I'm streaming, be kind to yourself,
mm,
and be kind to as many people as you can be, because kindness is free. If you can be kind to somebody, be kind to them,
mm,
because you just don't know how much sand is in anybody's hourglass.
mm. And it goes to the old, Latin saying, "Carpe diem." Seize the day. And the reason why I wanted to bring up the story with your dad is, as you've said, you've always been very open about it. You always say you are a very open book, and it goes to show, hey, look, yes, you can go through these highs, you can go through these lows, but without content creation, maybe I wouldn't come out of it the same way. Maybe I wouldn't have, been able to rebuild myself. I wouldn't have been able to do this. And it seems really silly and cliche to say to some people. I know it's like, oh, that's fucking stupid. Let's be real. It does
Mm,
sound a little stupid when you go, yeah, streaming saved my life, right?
yeah.
Like the friends I have made, even the friends I have lost over the many, many, many years of doing this, without I would not be alive. I've always said,
Mm-hmm.
I have attempted suicide multiple times. Now, thankfully, I haven't done it for a long time.
Yeah.
But, even to this day, those thoughts still run through here. I know you'll be the same. Anyone who has suffered it once, it's always there. It's an unfortunate thing.
Yep.
And, I, I love the idea of seizing back that, that 17th, that, okay, this is the shit day. This is the day I'm taking back. Very similar
Mhm.
idea for me with the 28th. The 28th in my
Mm.
family is kind of a joke, in a kind of bittersweet way, because my not my birth, my grandfather was born April 28th. Not
Mm.
April, sorry, February 28th. My dad is April 28th. I'm July 28th. And then my grandfather passed away on January 28th.
Mm.
So 28 is a number I both love and fucking detest to this
Yeah.
day. So, it's one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like, the 28th is a day that, I might not necessarily stream, but it's a day where I do all the things I love to do with my grandfather.
Mhm.
I always sit down, I play guitar, I'll eat a nice
Mhm.
home cooked meal, and just, I'll watch old videos we have of him, and
Yeah.
reminisce a little bit. You always want, as you said, you always want that one extra conversation. That I was very fortunate. I
Yep.
actually was the last person to have a conversation with him, which was funny as hell. Because just to give a bit of context, he had a stroke, so he wasn't like fully,
Mm.
he wasn't fully there.
Yeah.
And me and my ex fiance, fiance at the time. Well, actually, I think
Yeah.
we were only dating then. It doesn't matter. Semantics. She'd been going through years and years and years of trying to get a diagnosis for her condition. She suffers from fibromyalgia. For those who don't know, it's like
Mm.
arthritis, but for your muscles. It's a bitch. It
Yeah.
sucks ass. And like just watching
Yeah.
someone go through it is fucking exhausting. I couldn't imagine having it.
No.
I've just got
Yeah.
a bad back. And, if I was, 100 pounds lighter, then maybe I wouldn't have as big a problem. It'd still be fucked, but,
Yeah.
to each its
Yeah.
own. So anyway, so I took her to see my doctor after, at this point, she spent 4 years trying to get a friggin' answer, right? Like, nothing. Like, we had ideas of what it could be, but no doctor was going to diagnose her with it. I'm like, all right, well, come see my doctor. My doctor's great. He has an open mind. Only problem is it's going to take a long time to see him because, he's the most popular doctor in the city. So you're going to be sitting there for like 2.5 hours just to see him for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So we
Mhm.
go in, I go in for me because I'd already, well, I didn't technically know what was wrong with my back, I think, at this point, because we'd spent years trying to figure it out. Because we didn't want to like pay for scans and shit because that's expensive.
Yeah.
Even here it does cost money sometimes, which sucks. Damn government. But anyway, so
Healthcare.
yeah. But yeah, anyway, so I went in and then I was like, all right, well, just come with me and we'll just ask him real quick, like, hey, you got any idea what this might be? Told him like immediately, like, yeah, my muscles are always in pain. I'm really exhausted and I'm really struggling. I was like, oh, that's fibromyalgia, just on the spot. And I'm never gonna forget her face. I'll never forget this day. So we sorted out all that. We go, oh, he's like, here's a specialist. Go see them. Come see me in 2 weeks, and we'll sort shit out. Here's a script for some basic painkillers and anti-inflammatories you can take. Take these vitamins. Do this, 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 and this. Like just a basic list of things to do. So we do all that.
Yeah.
And so we started walking up because my city, like, we call it a city technically, right? Because there's enough people for it to be a city. It's a town. It takes 15 minutes max to walk across the CBD. It's tiny. So we're going.
I grew up in a place just like that. Yeah.
So we're going from the kind of the dead center up to the top of town, just to go to the specialist place, and we're walking up there, and I go, all right, well, we're walking past the hospital, and no Pop's in there, so I'll pop in. So I go in, go see him, and he was just alert enough to kind of know who I was and things like that, so he wasn't like completely out of it by that point. But I just went in to say, hey, hope you're doing all right, all that good stuff. And he's like, oh, I need a drink. So I grab him a glass of water with a straw, bring it up to him to sip. And he starts sipping on it and he goes, this isn't a beer. I'm like, Pop, you can't have a beer. I'm pretty sure the nurse was outside the door pissing herself laughing. And I'm like, mate, if I bring in a beer, they're going to kick my ass. I'm not allowed to bring beer in here. We can sneak Macca's and KFC and shit in that we're not meant to, but a beer, that's going a little too far. But like, as you said, you remember the good, and the bad will still be there, unfortunately, and you always want that one extra conversation. But as you said, you want to seize that day, make it yours, and as you said, as I said, sorry, it's very cheesy, it seems very silly, but to kind of go on what you're saying, tomorrow is not a given. So if you want to do content creation because it's like, hey, this is something I want to do, just as a passion thing. Do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a passion for it and it's not going to cause harm to anybody, you know,
Yeah.
because there are people out there who have a passion for some pretty nasty shit and fucking weirdos. But at the end of the day, right, as long as it's not causing harm to anybody, content creation isn't going to. Do it.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't tell me the excuse I don't have time. There's always people who give me that excuse. I'm like, bullshit. If you are passionate about it, you make the time. Right.
Yep.
Like take, you know, all the work you put into sorting out your Halo tournaments and stuff like that. A lot of work went into that, right? So like, you know, if you're doing something like that, it's like, yeah, you got work to do. You got other shit to do. You got school. You got things you've got to do in your life. Yet somehow you're finding time to do this thing that, you know, for all intents and purposes is technically, you know, on paper pointless, right? But it brought you so much joy, happiness, and new friends that it's like, you know, it's like, oh, I might have had to push off doing this other thing a little bit to do this thing I want. Guess what? It works out every time. Every freaking time it does.
That's the thing. And I just want to, you know, just first and foremost, I just want to say I'm glad I can speak for everybody when I say we're all happy you're still here with us, because you are amazing human beings. So we're happy you're here amongst us and able to share your content with the rest of us. But I will say, like, for example, Thursday night, I am now, my schedule right now, I juggle school, streaming, you know, YouTube editing, and just, you know, friendships. Like, not friendships they're not work, but look, relationships, no matter what kind they are, take work.
They do.
You know, you have to, you can't just, it doesn't run on autopilot. You know, you got to be there for people. So, you know, I ended up, I did a 5-page report and went to bed at like 2:00 in the morning on Thursday night. But I did everything I needed to do. You know, like everything, there was enough time in the day. I will say that for people who want to do it. You know, like, do it. But make sure you don't do it for the wrong reasons. Like, do it for as a passion. You know, if it's a hobby. Like, I'm not doing this to be famous. I'm doing this because, you know what? I have time in my day. I enjoy it. I enjoy creating, as I said, the content. I've always been this sort of, if I could record something and make a haha, and, you know, it merges two of my loves together, gaming and that, and I've made a lot of good friends. But I've also run into the people who are sort of, they don't say it, but you can tell by the way they sort of are approaching it that it's a, I'm here to make money kind of thing. I'm here to be famous. This ain't the road. Let me tell you, this is the road to a starving artist routine. Like, you know, because I've ran into a lot of people who are like, they get almost depressed, you know, to the point of like, oh, I'm not seeing this number, or oh, I'm not seeing that number, or oh, you know, numbers are down. And it's just like, I gotta find a game. What game is doing well on Twitch so I can grab people? And it's like, that's the wrong approach in my opinion. Like, be true to you. People, there's enough people out there on the streamer side and on the viewer side. There's enough to go around. Trust me. There's an audience for everybody. You know, you're not, statistically speaking, I don't want to say, you know, to definitely, but statistically speaking, the odds of being the next great content creator that's like, you know, I don't even know who the famous ones are, but the odds of being the next one in that line are very slim, because it's just the way the medium works. You know, those people, if you look back at it, those people have been doing this for 8, 9, 10 years in some cases. And you know what? They all had the phase of, it was just me and myself. You know, they streamed to themselves. Everybody has that phase. So if you're going to do it, do it because you want to do it. Have fun. If you are having fun, and I cannot stress this enough with people, this is the one thing I tell everybody. If you are having fun, I'm going to have fun. Two of the most entertaining content creators I know is Dorklina and Redbeard Flynn. They just go and have fun. And I can never go into their stream in a bad mood and leave in a bad mood. I always leave on a better mood than I came in, because they're just having fun.
Mm,
they don't, it's not like, oh, I only have 5 people here. No, they're
mm,
the same way. And I've been in their stream when they've had 5 people and they've had 50 people, and they're the same because they are themselves.
mm,
Be yourself. It's hard. Trust me, I know, because when I first streamed, I wasn't completely myself.
mm,
It's a process that it goes back to the self-confidence.
mm,
You will get there. But be yourself, and that's going to be what draws people in. People are going to be like, this is fun. I want to hear this. Even if they're not chatting, because there's times where, people they're just not chatting. And I'm thinking, well, shit, there ain't nobody here, and I'm still doing my thing. And then I go to raid out, and it's like, there's like, 15, 20 people there.
mm.
Sometimes people just want to listen.
Yeah.
So just enjoy the ride, enjoy what you're doing, have fun with what you're doing, and that will, everything else falls into place. Play a game you love. Play a game that you want to, either if you haven't played before, you want to try, or like the first game I ever played was Mass Effect. Why? Because it's what I loved. So I love this game, and I can show little secrets and things of the game and bring people along, and maybe people who haven't played Mass Effect or haven't played in a while, whatever, those sorts of things. Just have fun. Don't, like, it's a passion for a reason. Don't think this is going to be a golden ticket, because it's not how it typically works. Just go, have fun, and just be yourself above all else. Be, genuine you. You might, some people like me, streamer me is just me turned to 11. I turn the volume up a little bit, because when I'm playing a game by myself, the thoughts that I say, yeah, I have them, but I'm not like, just sitting at home by myself like, look at this guy over here. Like, I'm not, when I play games, I'm not like that actually. I do that for stream, but just be yourself, and it'll all fall into place. I promise. You'll find your footing. You'll find the people that are there for you, and they will be there for you. They will be your community. They will be the people that become, in some cases, friendships, and you will feel that love and support that you're seeking. Just that's what I try to stress to people.
Actually goes to say, back to what you're saying, like towards the very beginning, where, how you said, like basically when you're streaming, well, or playing the game, you're not really playing the game. You're just kind of here to, talk some shit, have a bit of fun. And it goes to show, like, to me, I find, like, what I really love with your content, especially when it comes to stream, and we will talk about the YouTube stuff in passing in a second, but especially with the Twitch content, the way in which you have your stream structured, especially in the beginning, is legitimately one of my favorite things. And a lot of streamers do it, but this is a really good tip for people. Say you've already got a little bit of a community that typically will be there relatively early to a stream. If you want to make sure people have time, a starting time screen as you have, never hurts to have. Sometimes, if you've only got 1 or 2 people that are going to show up on the dot, like immediately every time, like they're just diehard friends and is how it is, like me and some of my mates, you don't necessarily need that, but, find what works for you. But the way that you start off with basically for lack of a better term, a just chatting stream, and then move into the game, it allows the chat to get moving, allows people to relax, settle in, get their food, get their snacks, get their drinks. If you like all of a sudden have to go to the bathroom or something, you're not having to pause the action. It's just, it gives you time to settle in, gives them time to settle in, everyone gets comfortable, and then everything just flows. Now, this will take more work technically from a, like, computer side, right? Like, you have to add in transitions, things like that. Not that you have to do anything crazy, but, if you want it to look good, there's a little bit more work that will go into it. But I think it's one thing, as you were saying, it allows you to be yourself in a more comfortable way. And as you said, it's not that you're not being you on stream. As you said, you're just turning it up to 11. You're like, okay, instead of having these thoughts in my head, I'm just going to actually say them instead. And then once you get comfortable, as I said, you get comfortable talking with the people in the chat, you start to relax a little bit more, because every time you go live, I don't care how many times you fucking done it, you always get anxiety every time, every fucking time. It's like, oh, okay, if you suffer from any form of self-confidence issue, whether it's the tiniest bit, you will always get anxiety going live. Like, am I going to, is things going to go right? If you have had technical issues once, you're going to be worried about it. And I've been streaming for the better part of 9 years now. I started way back in 2012, technically, but I didn't stream then. I started doing content creation then. I started streaming in 2013. And I have had any and everything that could go wrong. I've had CPUs overheat. I've had GPUs fall out because I've moved the PC and things weren't plugged in properly when I didn't know jack shit about computers. Like, I knew about them, but I wasn't great at putting them together.
Right.
And one thing I love on your channel, under your tech kind of section, is I am the Jon Snow of like technology.
Pretty much me.
Yeah, I know nothing, and like you don't. And this is something I've said in many others. And it goes to what you were saying. You don't necessarily you yourself need to know. If you have that community, you're gonna get that support, right?
Yeah.
And learn, as you said, you learn to be comfortable, learn to be more confident in yourself, and you start to grow as a person. Now, whether you get 1,000 viewers or not doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
As you said, it shouldn't be about getting numbers. Yes, it's nice to have people in chat. Don't get me wrong. Like, I have done 17, 18, 20-hour streams. One person showed up for 15 minutes and that's it, right?
Yeah.
But did I care? No, because I was streaming for me just to do something, right? Like, it wasn't, I need to get viewers or anything. It's like, no, I'm streaming this game because if one of my friends who wants to come in and watch this game or talk about this game can come in and watch. Like, if I want to play StarCraft, do I expect any of my friends to come in and watch? Fuck no. They have no idea what's going on. They're like, what the hell? There's just the camera's jumping everywhere. Stop. I'm like, no, gotta go faster. But you play something as you've done in the past, Mass Effect or even Halo especially, you gave great examples of, people just start popping up like, oh fuck man, I haven't played Halo in forever. And everyone starts sharing these stories, and you start to build a wonderful, wonderful community. Now, speaking of, building community and that, as you said, you've started doing content for YouTube, not necessarily for super long, but, you've had a little bit of time under your belt with it so far, and you have the best named podcast in the world as far as I'm concerned, the BB&J. Like, you can't beat that. Like, if someone thinks you got a better name, fuck you, you're wrong.
Appreciate that, yeah.
There's nothing better, in my opinion. What made you go, you know what, let's do some YouTube on top of doing Twitch?
So I've always been a sort of radio fan, if you will. I've been a fan of the radio show. I a lot of times early in late 2006 and into about 2012-ish, there's a lot of radio syndicated shows that I would watch on TV. And so I kind of became the fan of the radio format, if you will. And streaming is a little bit, it's hard to do that on Twitch, because it's like you're not having guests come on. You're not really, you can, but it's a little different sort of thing. So I've always had that itch, and I started meeting a lot of great streamers. And I said to myself, and if you're in enough streams, that there is sort of the favorite questions or the frequently asked questions that I've seen. It's a lot of, where'd you get your name? How did you start? A lot of times people are like, and they won't necessarily ask them point blank, but they'll ask in passing, like, oh, I thought your name was this. And the streamer will go into sort of this annotated version of the same story about how they came up with their name. So I thought to myself, I know a lot of streamers, and a lot of times these communities are sort of self-isolated. Like I'll say, oh, I've seen this streamer named X, and the person I'm talking to might not know that person. So I said, what if I can scratch my radio itch, and I could also, as a way of sort of trying, like I didn't have a huge platform, but with what I did have, boost some people, give some people a sort of, not megaphone, but sort of showcase people. And so Twitch to YouTube was born out of that. It was sort of like, I can ask these questions that I've seen so much and mix in some questions that I want. So the format that I use is I have some standard questions that every guest gets, and then there are tailor-made questions for the content that creator creates, because there's a lot of different types of content creators. So that's how Twitch to YouTube was born. And I was just like, you know what, I have the time and I have this itch, and I really, these people that I sit and talk to, a lot of them are my friends, and I just love having these conversations with them. So I just was like, hey, you want to do this? And there are some people that I didn't know before as well as I do now afterwards, because after the show was over, sometimes some of the guests, they always go in nervous beforehand, and then when they're done, I don't know if you've experienced this too, but like they go in nervous, like ooh, what like what's the topics, what are we going to talk about, what is this? And then when it's done, they're like, oh, that was so much fun. And it's kind of like they I don't know if it's an adrenaline high or what, but they just sort of, they will sit with me sometimes an hour more after the show is done, just talking, and I think they've gotten so comfortable. And so I've actually formed friendships with that. The BB&J show was actually, I touched a little bit on it before, but after BB and I did the Halo tournament, and we, again, the friendship just grew. I was watching his stream, and he was talking about something. I don't remember exactly what it was he was talking about, but I just was watching his stream, and I'm like, man, I think he and I having a discussion show would be good, because like we just bounce off each other. So this was January, and I wrote him and I said, hey, what do you think about doing this show, and we can call it the BB&J show, like a PB&J sandwich. And it was he was thought about it. We spoke. Like he was always for it. Like it wasn't the thing like I had to twist his arm or anything. He was always for it. But his scheduling and everything. And so we decided we're going to do it. And we're like a week and a half away from actually announcing it and launching it. And I was on somebody's stream, and he was in the chat, and somebody goes, oh, it's BB&J. And somebody writes, man, that's a good name. It's like a PB&J sandwich. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if you only know, and so it just blew from there. So it's just basically it has gotten to a thing where like we wanted to do topical news, but then it just became a thing of like, it's just gaming stories that we're interested in. It sort of evolved like all things do. But we record on a Thursday typically, or a Friday, and then uploads for a Saturday. All Eastern times, of course. I know it's different parts of the world, but it just basically became out of things I want to do. It was just something I want to do, and I have the ability to do it. I don't know how long I'll have the ability to do it, with work, life, and all these other things that, life is ever evolving. But for now, I can do it. It's an itch I have. It's a passion I have. So it's like, why not? And it's a way to, in some respects, with like Twitch to YouTube, give back a little bit and sort of put some people. And I've had people who have written me and be like, man, I really needed to hear what this guest said, or I didn't know this person streamed. I gave them a follow. So it's like I've gotten back, and that's it for me. That's all I need. Like I'm like it's sort of working. And one of the things that I always wanted to do with Twitch to YouTube was I wanted each episode to have its own personality. And when I was done with the first season, I kind of smiled at myself, and I'm like, because it worked. Each episode has its own personality. There are some people who give shorter form answers. They get directly to the point, and that episode is like 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And then there are people that will tell 9 different stories to answer one question, and I have like an hour and a half episode, and that's fine. It's like because like they'll tell me, am I talking too much, or is this too long? And I tell them, I said, just give me as much or as little as you want. I'll take care of the rest. And so I love that each episode has its own personality. Jokes. Some people are, I had one person who's like really a jokester, and towards the end, he's like, holding up it was like a different kind of plant, because Sir Greggy with his whole Gregory situation, and he's now holding up a daffodil, and it's like a whole different. It's just like his personality. That's his episode. It's different, completely different than say the episode I did with Lionheart. It's different than the episode I did with this person and that person. So to answer the question, eventually, it's just because I wanted to, and I was able to, was why I did it. But I will say, if I'm allowed to divulge a little or allowed to have a little aside. It is very hard to, I think I'm able to do YouTube with streaming because they're different.
Mm.
I tried a little gaming content and streaming gaming content. I couldn't. Like it was too much. And I have a friend who streams. She doesn't stream as much, but her YouTube is like, forget it. It's unbelievable. She's like hitting all the markers you want to hit, and she's exploding with YouTube, but she doesn't have the time to stream. It's like if you're a smaller content creator, sometimes you kind of have to choose one or the other. I was able to sort of manipulate it in a way that Twitch to YouTube is a seasonal thing, and it's different than gaming. It's just talking, which is, because gaming for YouTube is so much different than gaming for Twitch.
Yeah.
Like you don't have a chat there to bounce off of. And so like the somebody in one of the Twitch to YouTube episodes called it emotional labor, because you're invested and you're carrying more of that emotional labor when there's no chat to bounce off of. There's nothing to sort of go with. Yeah, you have the game, but it's like you feel like you kind of keep talking. It's hard to stay quiet, at least for me. So, but yeah, I think I answered the question. Yeah. I may not have, but
it's good enough.
I hope I did.
It goes into like why you explain why you kind of got into doing YouTube and things like that, which is great. And to kind of play off what you said, like how doing gaming stuff for YouTube is, especially as a streamer, can be quite difficult, especially if you're busy juggling life. A lot of people are. So for example, I've done the whole Let's Play content. I still have ones I want to do and things like that, but I changed up how I started doing my gaming related content for YouTube to being more a kind of either first impressions or a kind of review or just more of a kind of slight retrospective. So my favorite video I have ever made to date is my Why I Love Final Fantasy VIII video, which is just a 40-minute long deep dive into why I love Final Fantasy VIII. It's just me talking about the things I like about it. Now, is it a perfect video? No. There are things that I look at it, I go, yeah, I could do this better, this better, this better, this better. It's not like my Doom video where it's like, okay, I'm very happy with the Doom video. There's like 3 lines of dialogue in the whole fucking video. And it's just showing off gameplay, because I don't care for the story of Doom. Everyone's like, oh, but, Doom Eternal's got this great story, and 2016's got this going on, and, I'm like, yeah, but remember Doom 2? Doom 2 was because they killed his fucking rabbit. That was the story. Like, that's all I need. I don't need all the other shit, But, like, it's something like that. It's like, yeah, like, doing something, that fits my personality for a more, I'd say, specific audience. Is how I'd put it. Because with Twitch, right, as you said, because you got that chat there is just this constant back and forth. Now, it doesn't mean always when you got chat in, like people in chat, you're not guaranteed to have people in chat. But, let's say you're at a point, you got 5-6 regular viewers fairly regularly at least, right? And you're constantly bouncing off each other. Streaming becomes really easy to do at that point, because it's like, okay, I know I'm going to get viewers. I'm not going to have this 3 hours of nothing. 3 hours of nothing is very hard to do. It's very rough. Anyone who's done any content creation, any streaming, even if you're doing YouTube and you're trying to do gaming related videos, as you said, you feel that you have to keep fucking talking, because it's like there's so much dead space. But one thing I did, and this is one thing I recommend. Now, this doesn't necessarily make the best content, right? Again, I'm a big proponent of saying, make the content you want to watch. Don't go chasing the views. Don't go, oh, I need to do, Fortnite giveaway videos and unboxing videos and all that. If you want to do that shit, do that shit. If that's what you really want to make it. But, like, I was going back watching, I go back and watch little snippets of videos that I've done, and I'll have periods where there's 2 minutes of no talking. Yeah. It's like, because it's like, well, there's nothing to say. It's like there's gameplay stuff to be focused on, so we can watch it, but beyond that, we don't, there's nothing for me to say, so I don't need to say it, because I have a very laid back stream, is how I would put it. I'll talk to people by all means, but I'm not a very social person typically. Like, every time I come to your stream, how long do I talk for? Like 5 minutes, and then I disappear.
Yeah.
Every fucking time. You know, even just to go back to the Grecian, right? Well, Grecki now. You know, I used to go into his stream. I, you know, come up with a stupid paragraph about like his backstory and shit that I don't even know why I started doing that. I think someone made a joke. It's like, oh, you know, you're a Spartan or some shit. I was like, you know what? Let's fucking run with that, and I just ran it into the ground. Well, I think I stopped it at a good point because it got to a point where it was like, okay, one, I made a stupid hype up song as a joke. And then I had like this fucking like 5-page long backstory thing that I wrote just for the shits and gigs. I'm like, here you go. You know, that's the end of the joke. It's done at that point. And like, you know, he like wonderful, wonderful guy. Like legitimately one of the most charismatic men I have ever seen in the world without having to put any effort into it. Yeah, now he might say otherwise, but like he just oozes that, you know. And same to you. Like to me, you are a very charismatic person, right? You've got that personality that brings people in, and to me, I'm like, okay, my personality. Well, I don't think I have a bad personality per se, but I have a very rough personality just because of, you know, I'm Australian. I swear too much. I'm a little bit loud. I'm a little bit too rude for some people. You know, as much as I am for trans rights, I'm for gay rights, I'm for, you know, everyone to have, you know, freedom to be safe and happy. I will still say shit that will offend people constantly, and I don't hide away from it. If I actually go out of my way to offend someone, I'm going to be mad at myself. I never actually want to actively upset someone, but if I say something that upsets someone in passing, I'll always apologize because, you know, I never mean it. But you know, it's one of those things where I look at it and I go, okay, well, you know, YouTube, especially for gaming content, you're talking about the most oversaturated market there is. You know, so how do you differentiate? I look at it, so okay, well, do I watch Let's Plays very often anymore? No. There's some guys I watch, like I love like Scary Game Squad, for example. I love watching, you know, 4 different YouTubers come together. It's basically a podcast while they play horror games. And like them just yelling at each other for making stupid mistakes while playing and that. And it's like, it's just funny to me. I'm like, I don't care for the game. I care for the personalities that are there.
Yeah.
And same with streaming, same with YouTube. People do not care about what's going on the screen. They care about what's behind that microphone. You know, if you are talking, you know, there are people out there who do very well for themselves doing like straight gameplay videos. A good friend of mine, Dan Diz, unfortunately doesn't get a lot of views at the moment. I hope he does start to get a lot of views. Wonderful, wonderful guy. He was like, you know, I want to do YouTube, but I just don't have the energy to do voiceover and all that sort of shit while I play games. But I want to make the videos because he's passionate about it. So what did he do? It's like, all right, well, fuck voiceover. Just put the video game, like the gameplay up. Does it matter if it gets views? No, because I just want to do it for me. And, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, gameplay stuff, you know, we've had, you know, you got your PewDiePies, you got, you know, Markipliers and things like that. You know, Jacksepticeyes, like these friggin' monstrously large creators.
Yeah.
You know, that we do not even exist as an atom in comparison to how friggin' big they are, right?
Yeah.
But I could tell you right now, why do people like PewDiePie now than 10 years ago? Because PewDiePie 10 years ago was putting it on and wasn't doing it for himself. When he decided to change and just go, I'm going to make the content I want to make, whether it's high effort or not. Because it's like, oh, meme review, right? Like his best series that he's done. Is it, you know, is it high effort? No, he literally just looks at memes and, you know, has a laugh about it. You know, but that's the shit that he wants to do. He just wants to interact with his community, you know, and basically, you know, as you said, you know, doing like the Twitch to YouTube stuff, BB&J, still greatest name, doing that sort of stuff, right? It's like, okay, this is a way I can interact with those around me, build more friendships, and just get to do what I want to do. Why? As you said, I love radio. Right, I love voiceover work. I love sitting down having a chat. I love to listen and learn about people. And I started doing this for the very much the same reasons as you, right? Yeah. Like, hey, I want to talk to the people around me, and I want to, you know, build these friendships and make them better, right?
Yeah.
Because like I use Glint as a great example, a guy I've been friends with for over 3 years, like prior in the pre-COVID times. Known him a little bit from then, and we'd hung out once in 3 years, right? Like some of my best friends, right? Like there's Pixel Sean, I bring him up in every single episode, and today is no fail. But we have, we've known each other for 4.5, coming up 5 years probably at this point, if not possibly longer. I don't think it's that much longer though. We talk just about every other day, right? In text chat. In voice chat, we've probably hung out 5 times in 5 years. Most of which is me going, okay, this is how you fix your OBS when it's broken. Like when he's like tried something and things are fucked up, or his computer decided to shit the bed or whatever. I am not the most talkative person. Once I start talking, like you, we both admit we don't shut the fuck up. We just keep going and going and going and going. But, we found a way to turn something we like to do, things we want to do, into something we can just do. And it's always going to come back to that, seize the day, make the most of it. Now, one question I need to ask, and I did allude to this a little bit earlier. What is your most controversial gaming opinion?
It's going to be one that's really controversial. And before I do, I'm just going to touch on some of what you said. There's 2 things that I will say for people when you're thinking about what to like content create. Ask yourself this one simple question: if there was no stream, no camera, would you still be playing this game? Or would you still be doing that thing? Like if the answer is no, then you need to reevaluate, because you've lost you've disconnected from yourself. And secondly, the thing that has worked the most that I've seen with content creators, like I mentioned Lionheart a few times, he went from, so I would say medium-sized streamer to he's now close to, I say, larger size streamer. He's got more like 200 people, etc. per stream and whatnot. He's grown. He's now a partnered streamer. His whole thing is like, I want to create an atmosphere that we're just sitting on a couch hanging out. And I think that's what a lot of people want. And I think that's why like the PewDiePie thing works, because it's like you feel like you're just hanging out with a friend. You're hanging out with a buddy who's just scrolling through, TikTok or whatever the app is, looking at memes, and it's like, isn't this funny? Look at this. And that's that kind of connectivity that people are sort of searching for. And I think that's why it works. So when people are genuinely themselves, you attract the people that genuinely will like you, and it becomes a hangout, and who cares about what's going on the screen. So that's just sort of the points that I wanted to touch on that perspective. But my most controversial gaming take is sort of 2 parts. One is that Skyrim is not a good game.
Thank you. Thank you.
Skyrim is not a good game. It is a great template, but as a game, it is a buggy, unfinished mess that a community finished. Bethesda did not release a game in 2011. They released a template that everybody sort of built around.
They released the pre-alpha.
Yeah, pretty much. They released it and like, here, go have fun, make something. And part 2 to that is The Witcher 1, which gets so much crap, I find more fun than Skyrim. And people who have seen The Witcher 1 will probably want to burn me at the stake for saying that, but I'm telling you, I have beaten The Witcher 1 once and have poured, many hours into it. I have played Skyrim, so many of the versions that they got. I think I've played it on a toaster at one point, and I could never, ever finish it. The most I think, that I've gotten is just about halfway through the story, because it is just a bore of a story, 1, and 2, just the way Bethesda tells stories, where it's like, there's giant death lizards in the sky, but if you want to spend 30 years, just smithing in a no-name town, nobody's going to treat you any different. Like, there's death lizards. I feel like there should be more urgency put towards that story.
Yeah.
So, that's my most controversial gaming take, is that Skyrim is not a good game. It's a horribly unfinished, buggy mess. It's a great template that people have built a lot onto. A lot of good stuff. But if you ask people who love Skyrim, ask them, do they play it vanilla? and they will probably, want to spit at you. Why? Because vanilla, the game, isn't good. There you go. That's all you need to ever ask. And I will die on that hill. Just ask any veteran Skyrim player, do they play vanilla? And look at the look in their face. That tells you everything you need to know about the quality of this game.
To go on what you said, right? Like how it's like, yeah, death lizards in the sky. I should probably focus on that. That's why I always liked Oblivion more. I felt the writing in Oblivion. Now, Oblivion didn't do this perfect by any means. Again, Bethesda is Bethesda. But at least Oblivion, it's like, yeah, everyone's like, we need to close these gates. We need to close the gates. We need to close the gates. Like, everything hinted at, it's like, yeah, you can do all this other shit, but you should probably focus on this, Like, it should be the focus. And, like, it's like another game, like Fallout 4, for example, does a very similar thing. Like, yeah, shit needs to be done, but we're not going to make you focus on it. Like, it's not a priority. Whereas Vegas, like New Vegas, that wasn't done by Blizzard, by good old Obsidian, is like, hey, yeah, no, you need to get to the strip. You need to sort this out. It's like, yeah, there's other shit going on, but everything just melds into that one spot. I have a friend who has played it for nearly 600 hours, right? New Vegas. He has done every single quest possible multiple times for every possible outcome. He has done every possible build he can think of. And the reason he loves that game is because it flows so well. Is it the best gameplay in the world? No. Is it a buggy mess? Hell yes. But compared to other, Bethesda titles, it's about the same. And I will always hate Skyrim to an extent, and I will admit that I am a hater. Because I put 20 hours into it, and I could not get into it at all. But I do as I said, I do love Oblivion out of the Elder Scrolls game. That's my go-to. I don't mind Morrowind. I finished Oblivion. Yeah. But with, when it came out, what was it, like 2011 when it came out?
Mm-hmm.
It released the day before our year 12 exam, so our final exams for high school. And that was also the year Dead Island came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to get Dead Island because all my friends were getting Skyrim. I'm like, I'm going to get the other game that I wanted to get because, like, if I want to play Skyrim, I can borrow it off them.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, this didn't happen to any of them, but for those who don't remember, this is how bad Skyrim was. And don't act like it didn't fucking happen. It bricked consoles. How the fuck do you brick a console? They're plug and play. They're meant to be easy. A PC, anything can brick a PC. It's not hard to do. But a fucking console? Bethesda, get your shit together. So, I remember playing Dead Island a lot instead, and I still to this day prefer Dead Island. As bad as the voice acting is, as cheesy as the game is, over Skyrim any day of the week. And it's just how it's absolutely always.
Yeah, no. I had Dead Island. I bought Dead Island years after it came out, and Dying Light, which is done by I think the same devs as Dead Island. I love Dying Light, and Dead Island. Is it the most like polished, refined game ever? No. But it's still fun. Like I will play Like I can find a motivation to play Dead Island before I can find a motivation to play Skyrim. I've tried to mod Skyrim. I have one of my like my nearest and dearest friends. Her name is Sugar Goody. She loves Skyrim, but she always mods it to Kingdom Come, and she's like she loves the lore of it more than like the game itself. Like, yeah, it's the lore that she's really into. So I told her, it's like, she and I is going to have to sit together and she's going to have to help me find these mods because I want to try to finish it. I want to at least be like, you know what? I finished the game. I finished The Witcher 1 and I finished Skyrim and I can put these two together and have an honest opinion. So it's been 12 years, right? Or 11 years.
Yeah, I think we're in the 12th. So
I'm educated in America, so my math isn't exactly the strongest suit, but it's just I still have never finished it, and it's like I said, the fantasy genre is creeping up there, but Skyrim has always been one of those things where I need structure as a gamer. Like as a gamer, I need structure. One of the things I love about BioWare games is it's open area. It's like they plop you in an area and are like, yeah, go do whatever you want. But until you do this thing, you can't leave this area. So the story continues, and you can sort of weave around. You can either make a beeline for the end, or you can sort of weave in and out and do these things. But there's a structure to it. I don't leave me to my own devices, because I'm just like. And Fallout 4 was another one. You know, I'm not going to get into too much of the details, because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who's going to play it. But like, this really super important thing happens at the start, just before you even, you know, like, get into the world, and it's like treated like nothing. Like, you're told to basically go and, you know, smack in fence posts somewhere, and it's just like, there is no urgency behind the story. Nobody cares about the world event that's happening. You know, like Oblivion, they're like, yeah, okay, you want to sit here and fiddle in a bar for, you know, 10 years, fine, but there's this like Hellgate that we maybe want to, you know, do something about.
Yeah.
And like they pop out all over the countryside, so it's like, you know, you got to like actually deal with them. So it's like, it did a good way of balancing, okay, you can go do whatever you want, but we're going to kind of nag you a little bit. And it's like, even if Skyrim had that, I would be happy with it. But how many times do you watch a lot of I don't know if you watch Skyrim content creators, but I've watched a few where it's like they're doing their own thing. They to this point, they're making their own stories. And it's like they're doing their own things, and it's just like, okay, that's not a game at this point. They released this sort of Minecraft-esque world for you to go play in, which is fine. But don't come to me with it's the best game out there, because it's not a game. It's a template that other people have made a game out of.
And it actually goes to, you know, speaking of Minecraft, like, I think Skyrim is, you know, and like most open world games, it's either you love them or you hate them. Like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, I like open worlds. Don't get me wrong. I love being able to explore. Like, I love Grand Theft Auto. But even Grand Theft Auto is like, okay, you want to get the better weapons. You want to get all this. Maybe do the story missions, get the money, unlock the shit, you know, like you still have to, like, oh, you want to go to all the islands, like, at least for the originals, not necessarily for 5, which I think is honestly the coolest way to do it. And I wish it was I hope it's something they actually do for 6 when they do eventually do it. I like the idea of being like, okay, well, do all these missions and then you get access to the next island, because it provides incentive to actually do the missions and not just fuck around. Don't get me wrong, fucking around and finding out's fun. But like, what's an experience everyone has in common when it comes to Grand Theft Auto? At a certain point, you get bored and you try to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Like, everyone does that. Why? Because at a certain point, it's like, okay, yeah, I've done, like, at that point, I've done everything. You know, it's like, I can, you know, that's like, but by that point, you've done so much shit. You've done everything that the game has to offer. You know, it's like, you look at, why is 5 stuck around for so long? Why is Skyrim stuck around for so long? Well, because people are making more out of it than what it's worth, right? And nothing wrong with that. Like, I think that's great that people are out there, like, you know, speaking of like Fallout 4 and Skyrim especially, people have created entire new games within them through modding. And that's why I love PC gaming. But it's like, look at Grand Theft Auto 5. Why is that still pull in ridiculous numbers? Roleplay. People are obsessed with roleplay in it at the moment, and it's cool. Like, it's a great system, but again, it's something that the community came together to create, not Rockstar. And you know, and going to what you said about Mass Effect, like, hey, yeah, you can kind of go here to here to here to here, but you can't really go anywhere else until you do X thing. You know, like, yes, this shows how far you can go, but you can't go any further. Like, this is how much progress you've had. That's why I love Kingdom Hearts. Does the same thing. That's why I love every Final Fantasy I've played. Does the same thing, you know. And people typically go, oh, Final Fantasy, they're huge open world games that take forever. It's like, well, so is Mass Effect, technically. You know, they're very long games if you want to do something. Dragon Age, ridiculous amount of gameplay in those games. Right? But at the end of the day, you can't go to the next thing until you have done what you need to do. And Skyrim just, honestly, in my opinion, until it is modded, as you said, vanilla, it's shit. Like, it's just, it's not like, you can have fun to an extent, but what's an experience everyone has? Everyone ends up, no matter what you fucking say, will make a stealth archer. It's gonna happen. Everyone does it. Why? Because it's the most efficient way to play the game. That's just the truth of it. And, you know, it's like, just to talk about StarCraft, because I don't talk about it enough, but like, you look at StarCraft. What makes StarCraft so interesting is mechanically the game constantly evolves. You know, even in times where, like, take recently, right? Blizzard did not patch or balance this game for 2 years. This is an esport, right? And the meta still fucking changed without any patches, anything. Why? Because the players figured out more and better ways to play. And I was watching a pro player by the name of Harstrom who plays for Team Liquid, because he's got a YouTube series where he was going back to the biggest throws in history when it comes to like tournaments and that. And we're watching them play, and there was a game they were showing from like 2013, I think it was, or 2012. I can't remember exactly when it was. And I'm like, dude, I fucking played 10 times better than that. Like, but you see how far the game has come. Like, it constantly evolved. Vanilla Skyrim, the game has not evolved at all, right? No, but you look at like Grand Theft Auto, right? And this is, I will give them to their credit. You know, the online specifically naturally evolved into what it is. You know, it's not a mod where it's like, okay, I see the tools I have, let me force it in. Although, yes, you can mod the shit out of Grand Theft Auto 5 and it's great fun. But, like, you know, Grand Theft Auto 5 is so successful for that reason. You know, whereas to me, Skyrim, it's like, why is Skyrim successful? Because it is a blank canvas. You know, you can do what you want with it, as you were saying. You know, it's just, it ain't all that. And for those who love it, I'm sorry, but you have terrible taste, and play Oblivion. It's the much better game.
I mean, you know, look, it's one of those things where I was there with the Grand Theft Auto Online in 2013 when it launched, and the rough launch that was. And, you know, it was a very different experience then versus now. And I've had some friends that I was able to play through a lot of Grand Theft Auto Online with. And, you know, we experienced the new heists and all these other things with it. And you get new people in and they go through the minutia of it, and you could see that like different people are finding different ways to enjoy the game. Like I have some friends that have played it longer, and we join up, and you know, it's like a big grouping. And it's why it breaks my heart that Red Dead Online doesn't get the support that it does, because I feel like the world of Red Dead is so much more fillable, if you will, I guess is the way to say it, because it's like if Rockstar gave it the support it deserved, it can be so. I mean, there was a point, not, you know, touching again on the 24-hour shifts in the Discord, but you know, I had a posse, and like the max people you can have in a posse, I think, is these 7 or 8. I had to rotate people in and out, because at times we would have 8-9 people in one session. And you know, we were doing a mission, it was like a job, we had to escort somebody, and I'll never forget how much I love this. It brought such a smile. I was like a kid in a candy store. They were in like their wagon, and they were coming up over a hill, and we were all just flanking on our horses, just coming up over the side, and it was just beautiful. And everybody's got their own outfits and their own sort of, you know, ways, the guns that they like to use and the way that they play and everything. And it's like, that's what made it so special. It's because the community aspect of it. You know, I don't like open world games on my own, but Minecraft was one that I never was like, Minecraft, like, what is this? Like, you know, like it didn't appeal to me. It didn't look appealing when it first came out and all of that. One of the things that I sort of evolved within me through streaming is enjoying the multiplayer games. And I was playing Minecraft with a group of friends. It was like Sir Gresham. I played a Justified Karma. He had a server, had a community server. And we sort of all played together. And it became this thing where it was like, you just see everybody's sort of like their expressions of themselves. It was so cool to see. Like, you know, one person just decides to just, you know, build a statue or something. I'm like a dwarf. I find the biggest mountain I can and just dig down, and you know, my home's a hole in the ground. And you know, being the New Yorker I am, at a certain point I decided I'm going to build a subway for the town, and I started laying subway lines. And you know, it's like it's that sort of ability to let people express themselves. And I think Skyrim, as much as I think the base game is just an incomplete buggy mess, it's a template. The reason why it's stuck around is because people can express themselves, you know, with all the types of mods and things that people do. And there was a mod, I forget what it was called now, but it was like, it added a story to it, like with voiceovers and cutscenes. And, you know, it's like, that's the genius of the way they released Skyrim, I don't think it was intentional. Quite honestly, I
No,
really don't.
not at all.
Because if it was intentional, I think that whole Bethesda Creation Club would have started from the start. I think that sort of became a thing that after I think it was the PS4 version, they sort of started, oh crap, people are modding this thing. Let's get on this gravy train while we can.
Yeah, let's rip everyone off because we want more money for the game that we just keep re-releasing anyway.
Exactly. So the genius that they stumbled into was that because of the code and the way they made it, people can go in and like, hey, I can, make. I want to be funny. I want Thomas the Tank Engine instead of Alduin, or every dragon's going to be Thomas the Tank Engine, and people can go in and have fun. And that's where it's like you give people expression. That's where games like Grand Theft Auto, Skyrim, Minecraft, all these games where people can go in and just sort of express themselves and just find like-minded people and be like, yeah, this Thomas the Tank Engine might not be for the serious player, but there's a group of players that are just going to be fun. And, for serious players, there's mods for them. And it's all those kinds of things that I think, as much as I don't like Skyrim, I appreciate and understand why it gets what it gets.
All right. I think that is going to wrap us up for now. So we will definitely have to do a follow-up at some point. I need to start booking those in with everyone. But I still have like 12 more people to interview, and I'm doing currently 2 a week. I was meant to do a third today. I've got you, Snow, and then a good friend of mine who's a photographer. So I'm trying to get people who do all sorts of content creation, so look out for that. But where can everyone find you one last time?
It is twitch.tv/Outlawman76. On Twitter, I'm Outlawman76, and on Steam, it is Outlawman76. Are you sensing a theme yet?
No. I will have links to all of your stuff down below. Everyone, please go give him a follow, and just accept Skyrim shit. Bye.